The year is 1590. A lone English ship cuts through the thick gray fog off the coast of what is now Virginia. After 3 long years of agonizing delay, Governor John White is finally returning to Roanoke Island. He is bringing vital supplies to his people, his friends, his daughter Eleanor, and his infant granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. As the small rescue boats approach the dark shore, the crew desperately looks for any sign of life. A plume of cooking smoke above the trees, a waving hand on the beach, a distant shout echoing through the wind. But there is only silence. The heavy, suffocating silence of an empty, ancient forest. When White's leather boots hit the wet sand, a cold chill runs down his spine. The settlement is surrounded by a heavy wooden palisade, built like a military fortress to keep out danger. But the grand wooden gate is wide open, swinging slowly in the Atlantic breeze. Inside, the scene is haunting and surreal. The houses are completely gone. Not burned down, but carefully dismantled, as if the inhabitants had time to pack up. The heavy iron cannons lie abandoned, half buried in the dirt and overgrown with weeds. Chests of personal belongings, heavy books, and family treasures are ruined by years of rain, scattered carelessly on the muddy forest floor. But there are no signs of a struggle. No broken arrows, no skeletons, no blood on the soil, no graves in the cemetery. An entire colony of 115 men, women, and children had simply vanished from the face of the earth. The search party found only one clue. Carved deep into the bark of a massive tree trunk, in stark capital letters, was a single cryptic word: Croat-An. And on another wooden post near the entrance, simply the letters Crow. Before White had left for England, he made a strict pact with the colonists. If they were ever forced to flee due to danger or attack, they were to carve a Maltese cross into the wood as a universal distress signal. There was no cross, not a single line. What happened on Roanoke Island during those 3 years of isolation? Where did an entire town go? This is the dark, unsolved mystery of Virginia. To understand the true horror of Roanoke, we must go back to the summer of 1587. The British Empire desperately wanted a permanent foothold in the New World. They sent over 100 brave, ordinary souls to build a new life in the brutal, uncharted wilderness of America. But from the very first week, the island felt cursed. The soil was difficult, and food supplies ran dangerously low within months. The winter was approaching, unforgiving and bitter. Worse, relations with the local native tribes were strained, quickly boiling over into violent, bloody skirmishes. Mistrust turned into terror. Desperate and starving, the colonists begged Governor John White to sail back to England. They needed food, tools, and soldiers to survive the winter. They needed a lifeline, or they would die in the woods.
White did not want to leave his family behind in such a dangerous place, but he had no choice. He promised his daughter he would return in just a few months with everything they needed. But history had other, darker plans. Just as White arrived on the shores of England, a massive global war broke out with Spain. Queen Elizabeth issued a desperate order. Every available English ship was seized for the Royal Navy to fight the Spanish Armada. White was trapped. For 3 agonizing years, he was forced to stay in Europe, unable to secure a single vessel. For 3 years, he could only stare across the cold Atlantic Ocean, knowing his family was likely starving, fighting, and dying in the dark American forests. He was helpless. When the war finally ended and he stepped back onto Roanoke in 1590, he found only a ghost town. For over 4 centuries, historians, archaeologists, and treasure hunters have tried to solve the riddle of the lost colony. And with every passing decade, the theories grow darker and more disturbing. The most logical theory is that the colonists, driven mad by starvation, abandoned Roanoke. They may have traveled south to live with the friendly Croatoan tribe on a neighboring island, integrating into their society. But if it was a peaceful, planned relocation, why did they dismantle their entire village? Why leave behind valuable iron tools, heavy weapons, and deeply personal family heirlooms? In a brutal, untamed wilderness, you do not abandon your survival gear. You don't leave your protection behind. Then there is the darker alternative, a silent, brutal massacre hidden by time. Did a hostile rival tribe ambush the colony in the dead of night, catching them completely off guard? Some experts believe a war party could have wiped out the entire settlement, executing them one by one, burning the bodies to ash, or throwing them into the deep, dark waters of the Atlantic. The forest would have quickly washed away the blood, leaving the island completely clean and empty. Decades later, a bizarre clue emerged that made this nightmare even more real. In the 1930s, a series of mysterious heavy stones were found buried deep in the forests of North Carolina and Virginia. They became known as the Dare Stones. Engraved on these rugged stones were desperate messages, allegedly written by Eleanor, John White's daughter. The inscriptions told a terrifying story of misery, sickness, and a brutal attack by natives that slaughtered her husband and child. The stones claimed only a handful of colonists survived, fleeing deep into the mainland swamps. While many historians debate if the stones are real or a brilliant hoax, they capture the true, desperate terror of those final days. But local folklore whispers of something else, something far older than the European settlers. Ancient Native American legends from the region speaks of a dark, malevolent spirit that guarded the island. A force that could consume men, transforming their flesh into the trees and the birds, leaving nothing behind but their fading memories. When John White stood before the word Croatoan carved into the tree, a sudden, violent storm hit the coast. The ship's anchor lines snapped in the wind. Food and water supplies on the vessel ran dangerously low. The crew, terrified of the cursed island, refused to search any further. They believed the land itself was evil. White was forced to abandon his search. He sailed back to England, completely heartbroken. He spent the rest of his days in poverty, knowing he left his daughter and granddaughter to the shadows of history. He never saw them again. To this day, modern excavations on Roanoke Island yield nothing but small fragments of English pottery, a single silver ring, and endless questions. 115 people walked into the American wilderness and disappeared into thin air. Virginia hides its oldest, darkest secret well, lost in the woods, carved in wood, and buried under centuries of absolute silence. Thank you for watching this episode of The 50 States. If you want to uncover more dark, forgotten American history, hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and tell us in the comments, what do you think really happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? Until next time, keep searching.